Hello, and welcome to the Planter Podcast, where we talk about veggie gardening and try to make it easier for you to grow your own food. I'm one of your hosts, Peter Keefe, and I garden at my house and also a community garden in Connecticut.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a market gardener in Huron County, Ontario, Canada.
And I'm Mylan Turner. I'm a home gardener here in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right, and today we're going to be talking about how our gardens are doing and what we can do going forward because it's mid-August already. Boo! Like, where did the summer go? Uh, I don't know about you
Happens,
guys, but it seems like it just you blinked and it's gone.
happens every
Absolutely.
summer.
Yeah,
It was a hot one, though.
it was. Um,
Still
and it's
is.
yeah, it's like 90 right now here. We're in Connecticut. How about you, man?
87. I
87.
looked it up here.
So you all both are actually warmer than what I have today here in Atlanta, which is very, very odd. We've had a stretch of rain for the past week going into week number 2. So it's a bit of a relief. It was pretty hot and pretty dry for a stretch. We were high 90s for quite a while, which just absolutely fried the garden. And so I can't say I mind too much having some overcast days.
Yeah, yeah.
No kidding. And you were saying earlier, Mylan, that basically it had been so dry for so long and they kept forecasting rain, and then, finally after you got out there and watered it just poured, right?
For a period of about 2 weeks, we had rain forecast, a chance of rain forecast literally every day. So I was not watering the garden thinking that, it wasn't be heavy, heavy rain, but it'd be enough, especially for short periods of time to sustain the garden. And we did this kind of song and dance for close to 2 weeks, and the garden finally was like just crispy as could be. So I was like, okay, I have to water. And I got all, I have drip lines and everything. So it's not too hard, but it was just a matter of I didn't want to over water coming out of those hot and dry conditions. And so finally I broke down, took a day, soaked everything, like really did a good job of watering. And sure enough, 2 hours later, just downpour, and then it rained every day for a week. So if you want to bring the rain in, water your garden.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
tip number 1 for today's episode.
I've been trying that since we talked and it's still not working.
Yeah, I'll send some. I'll send some your way.
It's apparently tomorrow.
Is your day?
Supposedly, we've had 3 weeks of maybe once a week there's that 30% chance, glimmer of hope, and you're like, please, please, please. Tomorrow is 60, so tomorrow has to be the day that this
Nice.
all gets rain.
It was so wild for us. We would have thunder and lightning, like black sky, and not a drop of rain. It was the most bizarre thing.
Yeah. You could literally see the clouds splitting, going in 2 different directions. It's like,
Yep.
come on.
Yeah, I'm right here. So
see, this is how you know we're gardeners. We just like to gripe about the weather extensively.
Yep.
How have things been in Connecticut, Peter?
I can't complain too much, actually. It seems like I've gotten much better than Mylan. So the last we talked, it was when we were recording with Gardner Scott, and I was setting up my drip irrigation system. And then I went on vacation. I went camping in Vermont. And that was really the test, is like, okay, is it actually going to work for the whole week that we're gone? Because I think we got one rainstorm while we were gone, and that's it. So it did work. Came back. Everything's doing well. So
awesome.
It's been great not having to go out there and water everything. Although Gardner Scott did mention it's good to go out there every day anyway, just to check on things and make sure the pests aren't going out of control or anything like that. So I've still been going out there and enjoying my garden and looking at it. But as far as
did you notice any condition changes with the soil or any, issues with overwatering as you were making the transition?
not necessarily. I still need to like tweak it a little bit to get it to go um, to like drip out more. It's very targeted, so there's an emitter every foot. So I've got like a nice wet patch one spot, and then a foot away I've got more water. And then in between, if I've got a plant like halfway, it's some of them are struggling. You know, that you can see on the top soil, it's dried out. But nothing's really died yet from that though, so I think they're still getting some water underneath.
On the lower levels of the soil. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
How long
but
are you running?
2 hours.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like it's real slow, so it gives out half a gallon an hour.
Okay.
So each each square foot will get about 1 gallon every
Very
day.
nice. Very
Yeah,
nice.
And is it on a timer, or do you have it like synced with your phone, or?
a timer. They do sell those ones with that like sync to the web, and you can. But I went old school. It's just on some AA batteries, and one of those ones where you turn the knob and you can set the time, the start time, how long, all that stuff. So it's it's been working out, no issues. I've also got the green stocks on a timer. That same timer, it's got three outputs. So I've got one for the raised beds, and then one for the green stocks, and then the third one is going to be I'm planning once I finish the fence, I'm going to put some hanging baskets on the poles, and maybe some other plants around the edge. So that's like that third zone.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you haven't had to hand water at all since you got this up and running.
Nope. Yeah, it's been
That's
nice.
amazing. That's awesome.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not for everyone. Also, it like the upfront cost is insane. Like it should not cost that much, but um, I figure I'm gonna have this garden for quite a while, so hopefully it'll pay for itself after a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
For sure. Just the time savings alone.
Hmm. Yeah, I just know myself. I'm not consistent enough to go out there and water it every day, and then if you do forget to water for a couple days, you'll heat shock or your plants, and it's just easier
Mm-hmm.
just to put it on a timer and hope that that goes well. Of course, you can also put it on a timer, and then if the timer malfunctions, it might be a week or so before you really
Before you
realize
know.
it. So there's that
Mm-hmm.
downside too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You talk
Yeah,
about it
that's
paying for itself. I think you'll see that in your increased harvest too, healthier plants and increased harvest.
I mean, I've got tomatoes growing here, and also the community garden plot, which has been severely neglected this year. It's mostly growing weeds, but I've got tomatoes growing up there too, and I have not watered them at all. Just the
Mm-hmm.
whatever nature provides.
Hmm.
And the yield here is so much more than what's up there. It's just
Mm-hmm.
probably because of the water. Um, Also, the weeds are kind of like crowding out the tomatoes. Every time I go up there, I weed around them, but there's only so much you can do. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
What I've really noticed with my tomatoes this year, so we've had a really dry stretch. It's been at least 3 weeks, maybe a month. So I'm just, doing the best I can in terms of prioritizing where the water needs to go. But the tomatoes definitely haven't got as much as they would ideally get. And I've definitely noticed much more blossom end rot than I would typically see because of the lack of water. So that's something interesting too, is sometimes like the plants are surviving, but they're not necessarily thriving or like coming to their full potential if they don't have that sufficient water, right? So they might pull through, but it's like, okay, one out of every 4 or 5 tomatoes has blossom end rot. It's like, well, that's not great.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Like I mentioned previously, we had a very significant stretch of rain before the heat moved in. This is the first year I did not have an issue at all with blossom end rot, but this is the first year I had an issue with slug damage on the tomatoes.
Oh.
Mm.
And so I was seeing these obvious bite marks, but they look very different from the way the hornworms eat the tomato. Like they burrow in and
Yeah.
you can visibly tell. And so with these, I was just getting these surface level like pit marks. And I started doing research and they would not completely heal, but you could tell it just was something different. And after doing some research, somebody said that's slug damage.
Hmm.
And I was like, it's been in the past, it's been to the point where the soil dries out so much, even if you're consistently watering, that I've not had a big experience with slugs.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Did
was a different challenge this year.
did you see the slime trail?
I couldn't really tell, and I don't know if that's because the rain that we were getting daily rain, and I
Would
feel
wash
like
it
it
away.
was washing it away.
Yeah, that could be.
I was not seeing the insects, so I was very, very, confused about what was doing this kind of damage, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when somebody said that looks like slug damage, and did some googling and looking at some images, and sure enough, that's what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do quite as much damage, so you can still salvage some of the tomatoes, especially if they're the large slicers, because like I said, they just do this kind of maybe quarter-inch pit mark. So you can, cut the tomato in half and still have substantial amount left. But that's just where every year there's a new lesson, there's a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That even if you haven't experienced or been gardening for a few years, you'll get something different every single year.
Aaron, are you dealing with any new pests this year?
A couple of interesting things. So, I mean, we've got all the usual suspects. So, flea beetle, always a problem. Doesn't matter where you are. The cabbage moth, also typically a problem. And what else have I got? Those are probably the two biggest ones, I would say. A couple interesting things. So I've seen a lot more Japanese beetles here than I'm used to seeing. The good news is they don't seem to affect most of the veggies too much. I have seen them on the beans, taking some nibbles. They seem to hang out on the peas, but the peas didn't take too much damage. It seems to be more the fruit trees and the strawberries that they're a little more aggressive. So I might have to do, like, I've just been kind of hand picking as I see them, but I might have to do something a little more extensive next year. The one super interesting experience I had this year, though, so earlier in the season, I started finding these hornworms. And it was weird because they weren't on the tomatoes. They were in the weeds, and I think they were near like the zucchini or something. And I noticed that they look different than what I would typically, expect a hornworm to look like, but it still had the classic horn and everything. And so I was like, well, I'm used to seeing the tobacco hornworms. I was like, okay, well, this must just be another version of the tomato hornworm. So what I often do with the hornworms is I just displace them and then figure the birds will take care of it. Like, I don't know, drowning them and squishing them is kind of gross. So I just take them off site. And I was kind of glad I did that because I've been learning a little bit more, and there's a lot of hornworms that don't actually affect your crops quite so much. There's like a whole family. Maybe I'm just slow to the party on this one, but other than the tomato hornworm and the tobacco hornworm, there's a whole other slew of hornworms that don't typically bother most, edible crops. And so I think these ones were like the white striped hawk moth, something along those lines.
What do they eat if they don't eat your crops?
A lot of them eat just different native weeds and plants. There was one, I think this one could impact apple and grape. We have a couple apple trees. I haven't seen them near the apple trees, and we don't have any grapes, so it's a non-issue. But they just don't seem, or I've seen some of them eat primrose or things like that. So they just have other host plants that aren't, what you would typically think of with the tomato and the tobacco hornworm. So, and I know a little bit from talking with Ren, our graphic designer. She's a huge insect lover, and she's also sent me some graphics and things of how to identify different hornworms. So that was a big learning for me, actually. something I would have thought pretty confidently that I had, identified. When you take a second look at it, it's like, actually this, there's no need to get rid of this. So I think that's just a good reminder. It's like, not everything that seems to be a pest is necessarily a pest. So it's always good to do your research so you know what you're dealing with. So that was my most unique experience this year, I think, pest-ish wise.
Going back to what you said about Japanese beetles, I saw a few of them here too, and usually I feel like they're more of like a southern type of thing. Like they like the heat. So with the hot days up here, I feel like we've been seeing them more. And so I put a Japanese beetle trap right there, hanging from the trellis, and I only caught a few. So they're really not that big of a problem. I just was like, okay, just in case they get out of control, I'll get a trap and see what I catch.
So they have been a big problem for me historically. This year, I did not have near the problem with them that I have in the years past. And I think that's down to two things. One is, like we said, it was kind of rainy during the time where they would usually come in. And the heat kind of, I feel like, adjusted their schedule some. And I have a gardener neighbor a couple doors down that put up the traps like what Peter showed. And my theory is that they went there to where their traps are because they had bags full of them. And I just had a little damage to my strawberry plants and my basil plants, but they generally do significant damage to both of those for me. And this year was maybe 10% of what they usually do. So the trap, I do think works, but based off of some of the research that I saw, it said the traps are helpful maybe at a bit more of a distance because they distract the beetles away from the garden location to the bait location. So Peter, that may be one thing that you want to experiment.
Maybe I should move it a little bit further away.
I've seen both. I've seen people who say they had it and it didn't do anything until they had it close to the garden. But I've also seen people that say, because I think it says they draw them on I can't remember what the distance was for the radius, but it was pretty substantial. And like I say, this neighbor is 2 or 3 doors down. But we talk a lot and they were getting pretty good damage. And like I say, mine, I got maybe literally a 10th of what I normally get. So I was really happy with not getting those this year.
You're like, thank you, neighbor.
Yep, absolutely. I'll send them bait bags from now on.
I've kind of heard the same thing about like the further you can get it from your garden, then it'll attract them into that opposite location. That can be helpful. I guess some of the risk is if it's too close to your garden, you'll still catch a lot of them in the bag, but some of them will just be attracted to the general area by the pheromones. So
right.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. But at the same time, if it's working, like keep doing it.
Yeah. And it's something that you'll kind of learn what they do season after season.
Yeah. The Japanese beetles actually for me weren't the number one pest. They're the squash bugs and cucumber beetles are really what did in my pumpkins and my cucumbers and the yellow and green squash. They all fizzled. So I'm currently on round number 2 of cucumbers to hopefully get another batch.
Oh geez. Did they get the bacterial wilt, do you think?
I don't really know. It's really hard to tell. It wasn't like a bunch of bug bites on the leaves. The plants just kind of wilted and died. So it could have been bacterial wilt. I don't know.
I've got a bit of that going on, and I think that's one of the major risks. I'm pretty sure it's a cucumber beetle primarily that transfers that. It's like your plant just doesn't like you can water it, till the cows come home, but it just keeps wilting and eventually just crisps up. So definitely I've got some of that going on as well.
So I ripped them all out, put the new ones in. Hopefully I did put them in the same exact spots, so hopefully that doesn't cause the same disease. I've got the 2 extra beds here that I haven't filled with soil yet. So if I had them filled with dirt, I would have probably planted them there instead, so that I didn't, cross contaminate. But it's the best I can do for now without
Mhm.
shoveling a bunch of dirt in 90-degree weather.
So
Yeah,
you
that's
mentioned your another round of cucumbers, and I'm looking at my phone checking Planter to get
Yeah,
my growing days left. But how many growing days do you each of you have in your season?
I've got. Let me see. I'm gonna try. I had it hooked up to
Oh yeah,
StreamYard.
share it on screen, even better.
Yeah, let me do that. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So I've got 162 days left. Oh, no, 62 days left.
Okay.
162 days total.
I've
So,
got 58, so just shy of that.
hmm
Every time we talk about it, I'm still so fascinated by how different our conditions are. So I've got 86 left.
Oh,
So that
jealous.
so changes. Well, it's just like we talked about. There are different things that come with that.
Yeah.
But so like Peter mentioned, another round of cucumbers. That's one of the things that I want to do as well, some cucumber and squash, because we get the squash bugs really, really bad, and I get the orange beetle with the really the consistent pattern, and they wipe out the squash, cucumbers, melons, like that whole family.
Mhm.
They just come in and wipe them out. So
yep.
I'm really excited to do another round of those, because I did have a very good year for watermelon. I had a very good early year for cucumbers, but my regular squash, I got those in too late, and it was like they were sprouting and fruiting just as the beetles moved in, and they treated
Oh,
that like a buffet. I mean,
oh
they
no.
just wiped that plant out. That's generally one
So
of the ones where you have loads of extra yellow squash and zucchini, and I think I got 2 this season.
I
Oh,
I
my
got like
favorite.
half of one, and that one rotted away on me. So you did better than I did.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're
looking at
super
this,
aggressive.
looking at the calendar, it does look like you could probably still start it. I started my cucumbers about 3 weeks ago. And then just put them outside. So I should still get hopefully another batch before the frost comes. But
Mhm.
who knows?
I think you will.
Yeah, unless the bugs get to them or the disease or whatever it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's always something coming after them.
Mhm.
So on your calendar, you've got up
Ooh.
until, let's see.
It's like October 13th or something
There, yeah.
thereabouts.
So let me go back to that if I can. There we go. Yeah. So let's go into cucumbers, and it says I could sow it outside until July 31st. But there is a like if you're in planter, you'll see there's like a lighter shade, and then the darker shade. The darker shade is more guaranteed that you will get something out of it. The lighter shade takes all those like ranges into account. So it takes
Kind of
40 to
that
60
shoulder
days to
season.
sprout to harvest. Yeah.
Mhm.
7 to 14 days to germinate. So assuming everything is best case scenario, you might be able to get crop if you're in that lighter shade area, but probably not worth it to risk it. So
Or if you do want to risk it, that's where starting from seed and kind of direct sowing a seed, versus going out and buying a $4, $5 plant
yeah.
makes all the difference cost wise. So for me, your my sow outside last date is August 24th, and so I've got almost an extra month.
Mhm.
And that's before we get into kind of that lighter days. I can push that clean till like middle of September. So every
Wow.
season, I like to kind of test those boundaries, especially like I say, when it comes to direct sowing, just in case we have a warm fall or something like that. I've got succession crops going in where I just got a spot or two. So
Yep.
Mhm.
Do
don't
you
take the
do?
dates as Bible. You can kind
Yeah.
of push them sometimes just to kind of see what you get.
Do you do a second sowing of tomatoes?
I do. I am late on them this year. So just as I talked about, I will 100% be testing the limits
Mhm.
on the temps this year, but I am only doing determinate Romas because
Okay.
those are what I struggled with the most from the front part of the season. And so I did not get to preserve any from that first round. So I want to do maybe two of those plants. And if I can get those, which strangely enough, the weather conditions now are actually better for them than we had in the main part of the grow season because the
Mhm.
heat came in so high and so
Mhm.
early. And if you haven't grown tomatoes before, once temps get above like 85, 90 degrees, their production slows down. And if you're growing determinate tomatoes like I am, that's a big problem because my plants were fruiting and I'm sorry, flowering, but not fruiting because it was so hot.
Mhm.
And after a month of those temps, that plant was done flowering. And with determinants, they kind of put all their flowers out at a small window. It's not a week, but you get maybe a month of flowering. And so by the time the temps dropped enough for the pollination to occur, the plant was done. So
Mhm.
I had that one plant that was over 6 feet tall, flowers and no fruit. So that's just bad timing on my part, but I do have almost picture perfect growing conditions for a second round. So I'm gonna squeeze
Nice.
in tomatoes, cucumbers, and there was one more warm season when I was going to squeeze in another one. Oh, corn. I had a really bad year with corn this year.
Ooh.
I don't know what it is, but I mistimed my harvest window because things got kind of squirrely on me schedule wise. And we also had that second period of rain, and my ears of corn they're like rotting.
Oh
Kernels
shoot.
are rotting, or that's what it appears to me. Like even some of the ones that have, so you know how you watch the silks
Mhm.
start to brown. After they start to brown, I give them just a couple of days, right? And I had one, and I checked, and I was like, "This is almost perfect." I give it like 2, 3 more days. Came back 3 days later and was going to harvest them all. I'd even taken some over to a neighbor, and substantial brown spots throughout all
Mm.
of the ears. And that's, like I said, that was after about 3 days of extra rain. So
Hmm.
that one kind of hurt. So I was like, if I
Yeah.
can squeeze in one more round of corn, which with 90 days and moderate temps, I think I've got time.
Which varieties are you growing for the corn?
Only a sweet. I forget the exact name, but it's a golden
Mhm.
sweet. The one that I had was absolutely delicious. Ate it right
Nice.
off the plant outdoors. So I had my heart set on, pulling a bunch more. But like I say, even the ones that should have been early, and some of the kernel development was really small, especially going towards the end of the corn. But just the moisture and the humidity, I think, set in some rot here.
Hmm. Oh, that's such a bummer. I hope the next round is improved.
Yeah, I expect it will be. So that was a challenge, but I did have a banner year on watermelon. So I did
Nice.
Sugar Baby and
Nice.
Mini Me, and
Oh,
I
cool.
got the timing on harvesting those just right. So the way I look for them is watching the tendril um, right before the fruit set. And I watch that, kind of look for it to completely dry out, and then I
Mhm.
wait maybe about a week after that. And I've harvested at least 12 perfect, good size, really, really sweet. I've been able to share those with some neighbors and friends, and that's been the highlight of my grow this season.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like a perfectly homegrown watermelon.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Last year we did the sugar baby as well, and we did a little YouTube short about it. And we got a few where the timing was like just perfect, and it was like just the perfect, delicious sweet watermelon. And then it kind of started to get a little cold, and then it was just like, they were still good, but a little bit underripe. But we got a few like just absolutely perfect ones, and it was like, oh, like they're just the best. A lot of seeds though, I did find, like, it's, definitely you got to be somewhere where you can spit the seeds.
That was my big surprise so I hadn't had the mini ones before. And I don't know, in my head, I was thinking there'd be fewer seeds or whatever. And I was like, no, you still get the same number of seeds in the small as you would in a big monster watermelon. And the very first one, I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. But I stuck with it. And like this year, they did get maybe 30 to 50% bigger than they did last year. And so that allowed the melon to stretch a little bit more, allowing you to get to the meat of it a little bit better. So if
Nice.
I had continued to have years like this, that'll be a consistent grow for me.
Nice. That's awesome. Have either of you ever looked into trying a seedless watermelon grow? I haven't tried it.
I just wish I could get any watermelon to grow. I've got a vine growing, but nothing, no fruit on it. It's just nothing. So I don't know what's going on with the watermelon in my area. And the pumpkin got the squash vine borer right away. So
Ugh.
I don't know. Do you ever battle with the squash vine borer, or what's the trick? It's just like plant a whole bunch of pumpkins and hope that they can't get them all, or what?
I don't fight them. Once they come in for the squash, I just surrender because they are so bad here.
So I've got them, and I have cut them out, and it's kind of like a very gnarly but rewarding experience.
And the vine
And
lives.
and then I rebury. So I've had it in zucchini and I think acorn squash as well. And then so you cut them out. Like you have to be really delicate, so you can see usually the hole where they insert themselves in the vine. So that's what I use as kind of my entry point with a knife. And then you can kind of like drag them and cut them out. And then just try not to slice more of the vine than is already damaged. And then you can sort of rebury the stem, and it'll recover as long as it's not too far gone. Like usually you can catch it pretty quick because it's kind of similar to the bacterial wilt, where the plant just starts wilting, but it's like unexplainable. It's like, worse than its neighbors. It's like, you've watered it and it's still a little bit wilty, but it's just not as extreme, I find, as a bacterial wilt. So as soon as you see that behavior of like it's wilting, but like it's not really because it's hot or because it's dry, then I check the stem, and then you can cut it out, and it usually recovers. I've actually had zucchini snap in a storm, like have the vine snap, and I've put it in water and had it reroot. So yeah, it's actually a pretty aggressive rooter if you can, like rebury the stem. It can, but again, you have to decide if that's worth it, right? Like, if you're space constrained or time constrained at that point in the season, it might just be a waste. It might be better to just pull it and put something else in. I tend to struggle with that, even though I know I should. So I tend to try to save things that I should.
That is such a hard part as a gardener. Like I've got a whole bunch of lettuce and old bok choy that I should just pull out and grow something new in there, and I just keep leaving it because it's like, it's still kind of good.
Attracts the pollinators.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too, just hanging on too long, and I don't know why. You've got plenty of seeds, plenty of time, but we somehow grow attached, and I personally am trying to work on not being attached, but just acknowledging when the plant has done the bulk of the work, and you're better served by getting something else in that will also thrive versus watching this one just kind of limp along. So I think a lot of us struggle with that.
For sure. I think a lot of it depends on your goals too. Like if you're looking for just like maximum yield, maximum production, maximum self-sufficiency, like that's a totally different ball game. Then you're, you have to be very cutthroat. You know, if you're gardening for the joy, like sometimes it does kind of make you happy when, you know, you have a plant that's struggling and then it managed to recover, it manages to produce that one last perfect fruit, right? And it's like, you know, even though productivity wise you could have done better, it's like that's just satisfying and rewarding in and of itself. So
Absolutely.
you kind of have to find that
balance.
balance.
Yeah.
So speaking of like the last plant, so we've heard a few of Mylan's. So Aaron, what are you potentially still putting in the ground?
Mostly green stuff.
Okay, that's what I was figuring.
And radishes. So I have lettuce, spinach. I have a bed of radishes that I just started. What else? I have some beets that I started a couple of weeks ago. That, you know, might be a little dicey.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it for me. It's like the fast. Oh, tatsoi. I'm doing some tatsoi. Some mustard. So basically, we're kind of into the green things now. If I had more season extension options in the field, I would still be more confident to do, like, for example, another round of carrots, another round of beets. But since I don't, you know, it's a little bit hit or miss. Now, the one thing with the carrots, especially, they can take a bit of a frost. So you might be okay. Like if you're willing to gamble it a little bit, you might still be okay, even if you're pushing it with the carrots. Because sometimes the tops just kind of get a little wilty with the frost and then they'll perk up. But if the tops get totally fried, then you're just kind of at the point where it's like, okay, whatever's in the ground is what you're going to harvest. So that's kind of the main thing is mostly green things. You could maybe push a green onion right now. It'd be a little tight, but you could maybe do it. But a lot of it also depends on how big you need the crop to be as well. Because the days to maturity would typically be for like a full size crop. So for example, a full size head of lettuce or a full size carrot, or a full size beet. But if you're okay with getting a baby beet or like, you know, just cutting some loose leaf lettuce or things like that, you can actually get a lot that way. And then that also helps because the frost date isn't set in stone. It's just an average, right? So like Mylan was saying earlier, if you happen to have, you know, a beautiful warm fall, maybe you will get full size carrots, right? So
you're also struggling with like less sunlight too, and there's nothing you can do about that.
For sure.
But yeah, might as well try. And then yeah, if it doesn't work out, you get baby carrots.
Yeah. I have also if your carrots get pretty decently sized, there is the option of overwintering them and harvesting them early in the spring. I think the two risks there is you need to get them early before they start to rot in the ground, and you need to get them before they bolt in their second year. So that can be a little bit dicey as well, but could also be an option, you know, if they get pretty close, but not quite over that finish line. Or if it just gets to the point where the ground freezes and you can't get your fork in the ground anymore.
That's a great point about them bolting. That's something that I am been experimenting with and learning the growth cycle of carrots. You hear that second year, and that second year isn't a calendar year. It's a seasonal year that the vegetables respond to. So I've actually had two, one in the container and one in a raised bed that I did let flower and go to seed just because I wanted to kind of see what they did. But they went in the ground early fall of last year. And so they went to flower this spring once the heat came in. And so I had always heard second year. And it was like, well, it's experienced so many temperature changes with our fall and winter that it thinks, well, it's responded as if it had gone through a full calendar year because we have such funny weather patterns. But it's been fascinating to see the flower and the stalks from something like a carrot get a lot taller than you would think. And the flower heads are actually really pretty, you know, for something that you don't get to see a lot. And they draw in some really diverse pollinators as well.
Nice.
Did you try to save the seeds from them?
I did, but I'm not sure if I want to actually try to regrow those because
it's a long time.
So finicky. Yeah. They're so finicky anyway. It's one of the one things that I like buying fresh. And I'm so spoiled now. I buy the carrot seed tape so that I don't have to come back and thin. So that's more of a laziness thing on my part.
Mhm. So what
Carrots.
about you guys? What are you both sowing now? I mean, Mylan, you talked a lot about your second, round of warm crops, but is it too early for the cool crops or?
I need to start my cool season crops, but I need to do them indoors. So I've got to finish clearing off this grow rack back behind me. A week like today, I'm sorry, a week like this week where we're mid 80s, probably be okay. But we still will get some 90s, high 90s here in the next few weeks. And I don't want them outdoors during that time because in my experience, my bok choy and my broccoli, that family, they have a tendency to bolt on me really, really quickly. I've had bok choy in the past growing in the spring bolt right from seed. Like it'll sprout, and I'd have it kind of out in my pop-up greenhouse, and we'll get one of those 80-degree days, which means in the greenhouse it's 90 plus, and as soon as it sprout, it sends up a flower. So
Mhm, mhm.
I'm trying to get that timing just right. And with those being able to handle cool temps, I will probably wait until September before I let those go outside, if I even,
Mhm.
try to start them outside.
So for me, I'm also on the bok choy train. I need to start some of that real
It's
soon.
such an underrated green. It's
Yeah,
such an
it's
underrated
great.
green.
And I got some lettuce that I just need to move into the garden. I'm hardening it off right now. Just like Mylan, I got to start it all inside. And I assume Aaron, you probably start a lot of it inside too.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, it's just easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you don't need to worry about all the mid-season summer pests that can just eat it in like one
Mhm.
little nibble.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I've also started like next to my garden. There's a whole area where a bunch of trees used to be. So I'm starting a bunch of perennial flowers to maybe overwinter. I don't know. It's really late in the season. It's hit or miss, but it's like the price of a few packets of seed. So I'm seeing what happens, and I'm gonna transplant them, and hopefully they can root and over survive the winter. So
Mhm.
I'd be interested how it goes with you just kind of throwing some seed down in some of those areas.
I tried that. I actually put like a bunch of sunflower seeds down,
Okay.
and I buried it like a little bit, but the animals ate it right away. So
Oh.
That makes
yeah,
sense. That
but they
makes
like
sense.
sunflowers, so maybe they don't really care for all the other plants. Maybe it's just the sunflowers that are the tastiest.
It'll be
They
interesting
are
to
the
see.
favorite.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
That's
I'm
pretty cool.
growing
And
like
if
things like echinacea and daisies and yeah, things that my bees will also like.
if you can mulch it too, that might give it a
Yeah,
fighting chance.
yeah. I could just like put a bunch of leaves on top of it before the winter. I
Hmm.
get a lot of leaves, so
It'll be really interesting to see how, with your, both of you have actually experienced pretty different changes to your gardens, installing gardens in spaces where gardens weren't previously. So it'll be really interesting to see how the other animals and stuff respond in both environments to see if they're coming looking for seed now or now that they've kind of smelled, different crops in place. It'll be
Hmm.
interesting to hear what you experienced, especially making the transition from summer to fall to deep winter.
For
Because
sure.
I've learned I've learned of the existence of so many new insects and things since I've started gardening, and especially moving into a different area. You're just like, how did you all know that squash and watermelon? You haven't had exposure to that, and they know they find it. They travel for miles and miles.
That honestly, that does make me scratch my head because it used to be a cornfield before. So it's exactly that. It's like, how did the cucumber beetles get here so fast? Like, how did
Yep.
they know?
Yep. And that's
But it's
that's one of the funniest things, like growing in an urban area, especially, there are no farms around here. There should be no major food sources for, like you say, a cucumber beetle, but That nature will find a way, is what I've learned.
For sure. And the tricky part about that, like the part that I'm kind of always questioning is this just a seasonal thing for this year? Like, oh, Japanese beetles just happen to be really bad this year? Or is it just a new area thing and Japanese beetles happen to be really bad in this area? So that's where, just keeping that garden journal and, some notes and planter, I can look back, after a few years and I'll have those patterns and say, okay, that was just a really bad year versus, oh no, this is like a persistent problem here that I'm going to have to deal with.
Definitely not noting the time and the population intensity will be very helpful moving forward.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I found really interesting this year as well that I'd never observed quite so closely was the seasonality of the weeds. That I found really interesting because in the past, it's just like, oh, it's just, weeds, everything is weedy, and you can identify the different weeds. But this year for me, I saw a very clear pattern in terms of which weeds came up at which times. So now that's kind of getting the wheels turning in terms of like similar to what you would think of with the past, where it's like, okay, could you, plant earlier and plant later to avoid that life cycle of the pest? It's kind of like, are there things you could do, with regards to the weeds to kind of either get more prepared or anticipate them at certain times? So yeah, that was the first time for me that I'd seen such a clear pattern month to month of like different weeds cropping up.
Yeah. I don't know enough about weeds, but I definitely have noticed that there's like the season, especially there's these new weeds that just popped up in the all of a sudden all over the whole neighborhood within like the last 2 weeks. So I don't know, something happened. They like the hottest days of the summer, I guess, maybe. And that's when they germinate. Yeah. I think we're pretty good on the podcast for today. I do have to highlight this our new merch in the merch store. If you go to store.planter.garden, our amazing graphic designer Ren has created a bunch of new shirts, including this one. This is the Proud Pollinator Protector shirt. Here, let me get a better view. So it shows all the little insects that we've been talking about, all the flowers that they love, and it has a geeky little guide at the bottom for you to, show off how much you love pollinators. And we've got a bunch of other shirts in addition to that. This one will work for compost. Love you from my heart, head to my toes. So just check the store out if you're interested. We've tried to like make it more fun and less plantery and more just gardening related. So I hope you enjoy that. And if you have another idea for a shirt, just send us an idea and we'll probably make a shirt out of it. So, Mylan, you're muted.
I was saying, obviously, the tomato one is my favorite.
Yeah,
love my
tomatoes. They're all great, and I need to buy them all. I waited until I just got back from camping, so I didn't want to buy them right before I went on vacation. But now I'm gonna have to
go shopping.
Have to go shopping. All right.
You did an awesome job on them.
Before we wrap up, does anyone have anything they want to plug with Planter or personally, Mylan or Aaron?
Go ahead, Mylan.
I was about to say don't have a lot on my end yet. I'm, like I said, just getting ready to prepare for fall, get back into actual gardening. I just dropped my daughter off from college this past weekend for the first time. So we were, as you could imagine, preparing for all of that. And so the garden kind of took a hit on that. So I'm just excited to get back in the garden, get some seeds going and spend some time there.
Yeah. And then for me, I mean, on the personal side, the market garden keeps me pretty busy. Had a bit of a lull in planting with it being so hot, but now it's kind of, back to that. And then I would just say on the planter side, I think, keep on the lookout. We've got a couple really new cool features coming down the pipeline. I know there's one in particular I'm thinking of that's quite close to fruition. So we'll be sending newsletters when those are live. And we've got lots of cool blog articles up as well. We've got a couple new blog writers. We have Sarah Manon. She's in Europe, West Germany, I believe. So she's got a couple really interesting articles up there. So if you haven't been in the blog in a while, go and give those a read.
Yeah, excellent. And just again, store.planter.garden. Buy all the stuff. And with that, thank you so much for listening to the Planter Podcast. Be sure to give us a like, review, subscribe, all that stuff. If you have a question for us to answer on the podcast, shoot us an email at question@planter.garden or ask us on social media with the hashtag PlanterPodcast. And we'll do our best to answer it in an upcoming episode. All right. Thank y'all. Have a good one. Bye.